Klimat zmieniał się zawsze.
The climate has always been changing, as have the seasons, generations and civilizations. Cities and their inhabitants have changed along with them, adapting to new environmental, cultural and technological conditions. And yet of late, the climate has undergone very rapid change. Within my generation's lifetime, global temperatures have risen by half a centigrade. This may not sound like much, but the question is climate change becoming more of a problem? Can the environment, technology and culture, as well as we and our cities, adjust to it? Join me and my grandson for a walk. Let's take a look at climate change with our own eyes, to think about how our common living space can be protected, mainly for future generations. Alan, where's the Vistula River? Behind those buildings. The Vistula used to flow right through here not so long ago. There was a wetland here and lots of greenery. It was cooler and much nicer. Now it's just buildings, a concrete desert. It's much harder living here. Just like other Polish cities, Warsaw has been developing rapidly in recent years. New housing estates, roads and supermarkets have been mushrooming, but far fewer new parks and green spaces have been laid out. True, the people of Warsaw can't complain because, overall, the Polish capital is one of Europe's greenest cities. Green areas take up just over a third of the city's area. Those who live in the capital love spending time in its forests, parks and commons. Andrzej and Alan enjoy playing ball there, even when it's hot. It's great the park's so close by. We can play footy. Nice and cool, isn't it? Why is it cooler here? On a hot day, it's cooler here because the trees protect us from direct sunlight. They give us shade. They absorb moisture when it rains and collect morning dew. Then the water evaporates, which cools the air. Just walk out onto a paved surface and you'll find it much, much hotter. Sizzling heat in the city is hard to bear not just for kids. In the hot summer months, it often feels like baking in the oven. We then seek refuge in shady parks or take day trips to the countryside. But are temperatures really higher in cities? Well, the answer is yes. The phenomenon is known as the urban heat island. In a nutshell, temperatures in the city centre are higher than in the suburbs. The urban heat island is created by artificial surfaces such as pavements, asphalt and brick roads, which replace green spaces that are bioactive. Besides, lots of heat is generated elsewhere in the city. It can't easily escape into the atmosphere due to air pollution. Dr. Magdalena Kuchcik of the Polish Academy of Sciences studies the Warsaw Heat Island. During the daytime, all those artificial surfaces absorb plenty of heat energy provided by the sunlight and slowly give it off overnight. In urban canyons and enclosed yards such as this one, giving off heat is made difficult because it's trapped between walls. It cannot easily escape and it bounces back at us, especially during the night. It's much harder for walls to cool down, and that's why the urban heat island is a nighttime problem. It usually starts after dark and ends at sunrise. Another factor that contributes to the urban heat island is the artificial heat we produce. We use energy for heating, refrigeration and air conditioning. Energy losses are huge in the process. Thermal imaging shows just how much heat escapes from poorly insulated buildings. Air pollution is another problem. Pollutants emitted into the atmosphere form a dust dome over the city. This in turn blocks the heat from escaping overnight, which means that the heat energy radiates back into the city, further raising the temperatures. The urban heat island sometimes covers the whole city. It's the hottest right in the center. Sometimes it looks like an archipelago separated by cooler areas. Urban sprawl makes the urban heat island more and more of a problem. This can easily be observed in Warsaw. At the time when Grandpa Andrzej was getting married, the center of Warsaw used to be 1 degree cooler than the outlying suburb of Okęcie. When his grandson Alan was born, the difference was already 2 degrees on average. In the early morning on hot summer days, it can be as much as 10 degrees Celsius. Bright kids can also spot other effects of hot summer days. Why is it hazy over there? Are the cars to blame? Yes, cars produce exhaust fumes. In intense sunlight, they turn into a haze, which is harmful for human beings and plants. Something needs to be done about it. This brownish haze is called smog. You often hear in the media about smog in the winter, which the people of Kraków are very familiar with. It comes from burning coal in stoves and boiler houses. You don't get to hear that much about summer smog, which is mainly caused by car exhaust fumes and, very importantly, solar radiation that brings high temperatures. It's what is known as photochemical smog. It happens when exhaust fumes are transformed in sunlight to produce aggressive substances such as ozone. This kind of smog is mostly observed from June till September. Photochemical smog is just as dangerous as winter and autumn smog. Negative atmospheric phenomena we encounter in cities are not just urban heat islands and smog, but also torrential rain. Paved surfaces prevent rainwater from soaking into the ground. It runs off into the drainage system, and in the summer a lot of it evaporates. The city is the reason why the rain falls in some places and not in others. Heavy rains usually occur on the outskirts of the city. When masses of air approach the city, they encounter powerful updrafts caused by built-up areas, and that's where most rainwater evaporates. In the city center, pollution is the heaviest, and that's where we have more light rain. Irregular torrential rains are one of the most conspicuous results of climate change. Though they are fairly typical for this climate zone, in recent years they have become more frequent and more devastating. In cities, torrential rains cause flash flooding, when storm drains are overwhelmed. The situation is compounded by runoff from growing expanses of paved surfaces, which rainwater cannot penetrate. Scientific research in the past 60 years has shown that man's activity is transforming the environment of the entire planet. We are causing problems not just on a local but also global scale. One such problem is man-made climate change known as global warming. Over the past 150 years, average above-ground temperatures have risen by almost 1 centigrade. The lifetime of Grandpa Andrzej has been the warmest period on record. Alan may be just 7, but he's managed to live through 4 hottest summers ever recorded in Poland. Scientists say that unless we change our lifestyle, global warming will proceed at an ever-increasing pace. This scenario means more and more extreme weather, heat waves, drought, hurricanes, torrential rains and flooding. One thing is certain, the world Alan inherits will be quite different from ours. Is there a chance he could be happy in it? It's so hot in here. Can I have some water and some ice cream, please, Grandpa? Okay, let's go to the kitchen.
Mamy wodę.
Here's the water.
A lody do wody?
Już lody daję.
Ice cream coming up.
To też lody.
Proszę bardzo.
Here you are.
Dobre lody.
Yummy.
Dziadku, dlaczego ten...
Grandpa, why is the ice melting so fast? You see, it's very hot, and that's why the ice is melting, not just in your glass, also in huge glaciers. It's all down to climate change and global warming. Sun rays reach the Earth, they are reflected from the surface, but they're trapped in the atmosphere, so they bounce back. That's why it's getting warmer and warmer. The ice is melting and sea levels are rising.
Morze i oceany.
According to scientific models, by 2030 sea levels will have risen by about 5 to 6 centimeters. This data has been used in the planning of flood defenses and drawing up flood risk maps for Baltic coastal areas and the city of Gdańsk. In case rivers burst their banks or high tides and sea flooding occurs. Rising sea levels naturally constitute a major threat, but things could get far worse if the polar ice caps of Greenland and the Antarctic start melting as a result of global warming. Ocean levels would then start rising dramatically. Various figures are given from several meters to up to 10 times that. This highlights the threats posed by global warming to coastal areas.
Może wystąpić w obszarach przybrzeżnych.
For now, catastrophic scenarios seem fairly unlikely, so we are not in the process of actually mapping possible new coastlines or estimating the consequences of sea flooding in coastal areas in case the Greenland and Antarctic ice cap melted. It is thought that the dangers are there, but that there's still a chance that this process may not be as rapid as it has been feared. In the southern Baltic, the potential rise of sea levels by the end of the 21st century should not exceed 60 centimeters. One should bear it in mind, however, that if the Baltic sea level should rise by that amount, gale force 8 winds would produce surges more powerful than those caused by gale force 10 winds in the late 20th century. This basically means that with more water in the Baltic Sea, the danger will become more pronounced.
A zatem zagrożenie będzie się szybciej rozwijało.
From the flood-threatened Gdańsk on the Baltic Sea, we come back to sun-drenched Warsaw. In Europe, climate change is accompanied by heat waves. These are periods lasting more than 3 days, during which maximum temperatures exceed 30 centigrade. Heat waves are particularly dangerous in cities, where temperatures are additionally raised by the urban heat island effect. The World Health Organization has published worrying statistics according to which heat waves lead to more deaths. In Warsaw, 14% more people die in over 30-degree heat. What's going to happen when temperatures approach 40 centigrade? Can you hear the ambulance, Grandpa? Where do you think it's going?
No widzisz, jest gorąco.
It's hot and some people are finding it difficult to breathe both during the day and at night, especially the elderly and children. That's why, when they are poorly, they call an ambulance and it comes round to help them. Our bodies are not very well equipped to cope with heat waves. This is particularly true about babies, senior citizens and the sick. At best, scorching heat makes us lose concentration. It makes us lazy and drowsy. In the worst-case scenario, it leads to heat strokes, circulation problems and even death. Global warming means that there's more energy in the atmosphere, which doesn't mean there won't be any freezing temperatures in the future. Far from it. We can now experience anything from Arctic frost to very mild winters. This excessive amount of energy in the atmosphere will produce more freak weather, such as more frequent downpours, which we need to learn to cope with in cities. That's why we should think carefully which green areas to use for development, to make sure enough bioactive land is left. Green areas help to control temperature in cities. That's the subject of long-standing research by Professor Barbara Szulczewska of the Warsaw University of Life Sciences. Plants we cultivate and select for the urban environment can help us by performing a number of functions which are generally known as social and natural functions. When it comes to natural functions, what I mean is the shaping of climatic, hydrological and biological conditions. Using plants, we can improve the urban microclimate. We can control humidity and partially temperatures. Plants give shade, which is a blessing during heat waves like this summer. They also play a crucial role in absorbing rainwater. With all those various functions of plants in mind, a concept of green infrastructure has been promoted throughout the world for more than a decade. It can be defined as a deliberately designed system of areas covered with greenery, which play these hydrological and climatic functions. Next to urban green areas, what makes life more comfortable during hot spells is access to water. In cities, natural water reservoirs are hard to come by. That's why it's crucial to build artificial reservoirs such as ponds. In emergency situations, drinking water is distributed from water carts. Water curtains and fountains enable you to cool down. These are a source of enjoyment for children. Temperatures can also be lowered through infrastructural solutions, namely surfaces that reflect sun rays. Large surfaces exposed to sunlight are painted bright colors. Rooftop gardens are built, such as this one, crowning the University of Warsaw Library building. In all spheres of city life, whether it's public transport, environment protection, energy efficiency, education or culture, everywhere we touch upon issues directly relate to the way we adapt to the climate. Climate change we are now experiencing profoundly affects our lives, but its consequences can sometimes be lessened through careful infrastructure planning. Warsaw is a city which has invested a lot in environment protection. The infrastructure problem we are facing now is how to cope with all that extra rainwater. Some present problems can be traced back to the unfortunate town planning solutions adopted in the mid-19th century. The drainage system designed at the time combined the collection of both sewage and rainwater, which ends up in the same collectors and sewage treatment plant. Meanwhile, the capacity of Warsaw's Czajka plant is not limitless. It's been designed to handle a certain amount of excess rainwater, but torrential rains overwhelm the system. In emergency situations, the plant is forced to dump water. In the near future, we intend to build reservoirs to hold the excess rainwater until the downfall stops. Heavy rain comes unexpectedly, but it's usually over in no time. We are now introducing a number of changes in public transport by replacing motor vehicles with rail transport and by investing in hybrid and electric buses. This is meant to cut carbon dioxide emissions, which, together with green infrastructure, significantly improves air quality and consequently reduces the urban heat island effect. But heat islands don't disappear just because you plant more trees and cut down exhaust fume emissions. This largely depends on airflow patterns within the city. It's thus important to leave enough empty space to allow air to freely circulate. Warsaw doesn't have too much of a problem with that, unlike some cities in the south of Poland. Still, to be on the safe side, we must make sure that enough empty space remains for the sake of future generations in case some unforeseen changes occur. Polish cities must think about how to adapt to climate change. A new approach is needed to the way houses, estates and whole cities are designed, starting with the manner officials, architects and developers view green areas. It is also crucial to encourage city dwellers to accept solutions geared toward adapting to climate change proposed by local authorities.
No, to siadaj, pokażę ci coś
I'll show you something interesting.
ciekawego.
Tutaj jakaś nowa
A new cartoon, a movie.
Tak, to będzie film
It's
o
a film
mieście
about the
przyszłości.
city of the future.
The Verbandregion Stuttgart is responsible for economic development, is responsible for the major parts of public transport and also for regional planning. We use all our opportunities to tackle the challenge of climate change. We provide also new sources of renewable energies. We have done a huge layout for dedicated areas where windmills can be built within the region. We also support electromobility. We support pedelecs, which are devices to be on the way with a bike with an electric motor as a supporter. We also have huge contributions on the development of green open spaces to provide recreation facilities close to housing areas so that we can also reduce the amount of traffic. That is one of the another big problems within the region here.
No to połóż się, Alanku.
Lie down, Alan.
No i powiedz mi,
Tell me, did you
ci się
enjoy the
podobał
film?
Fajne to miasto, ale
The city
nasze
looked
tak nie
great, but
wyglądają.
why aren't cities
Słuchaj,
like
do
that?
Stuttgartu nam jeszcze daleko.
We may have a lot of
Ale
catching
mamy
up
w
to do
Polsce
to
już
live in a
pierwsze
city which
próby
looks like
dostosowania
Stuttgart,
się
but the
miasta
first
do
attempts are
zmiany
being
klimatu.
made in Poland to
Jak i
adjust
także
cities to
takiego
climate change and to
przekształcenia miasta,
redesign them
aby nie
in a way
wpływało
that doesn't negatively affect the climate.
Takim przykładem jest błękitno
One example is
zielona
the
sieć
blue-green
Łodzi.
network in Łódź. The city of Łódź lies on a watershed between the Vistula and Odra river basins. That's why it's short of water. And yet, 18 small rivers used to flow through Łódź. Several riverbeds are left and now they collect rainstorm water. Studies we have conducted together with the medical university show that this water can be treated. The Sokołówka River was our first test study as part of the European Switch project, within which we built a water treatment system. This made it possible to build a cascade of dams and water reservoirs and to create a green corridor which is perfect for recreation. A new cycle path there allows cyclists to reach a landscape park and forests outside the city.
krajobrazowego czy otaczających miasto lasów. Jak zwykle rozwiązania, które
Typically, innovative solutions initially tend to stir a bit of controversy. The moment we built the first sequential system on the Sokołówka River and we were about to start the construction of the reservoir, local residents launched protest actions because they feared they would be plagued by mosquitoes.
argumentem było to, że pojawią się komary.
But as soon as the reservoir was complete, the residents discovered that the project had many advantages. So much so, they suggested we build another reservoir in this stretch of the Sokołówka River, which we have.
Na tym odcinku Sokołówki powstał i zbudowaliśmy drugi zbiornik Teresy. Także myślę, że stopniowo
I believe that gradually people are becoming more aware that in our climate, which is free from dengue fever, malaria and other similar diseases, water in the city is a factor that significantly improves their quality of life and health, offering them a chance to lead more active lives and to enjoy active recreation. But adapting to climate change isn't just about major investment projects. The president of the Institute for Sustainable Development, which Grandpa Andrzej actually co-founded 25 years ago, is convinced that small steps are just as important.
Zmiany klimatu są wyzwaniem globalnym.
Climate change is a global challenge, and so it isn't just a matter for the authorities, international organizations, governments and local councils. Local residents should play their part too. A lot can be achieved through working together within non-governmental organizations. I reckon that their role is to rally local residents around a common cause, in this case, climate change, adapting to it, discussing and drafting concrete initiatives that could make a lot of difference on a local scale.
Dyskutowanie oraz przygotowywanie konkretnych inicjatyw, które lokalnie mogłyby
Such initiatives may concern areas such as this one.
związane chociażby z takimi terenami, jak jesteśmy tutaj, żeby urządzać ich więcej, żeby one były urządzone lepiej.
There should be more of them. They should be better laid out, and the greenery planted there should prove more useful during heat waves.
Na przykład w przypadku fali upałów, żeby było więcej terenów zielonych.
Let's have more green areas, for example, shaded playgrounds, well protected from direct sunlight. Let's use green areas like this to build water features where runoff from concrete jungles can be collected in nice little ponds.
Zabetonowanych i na przykład tworzyła jakieś bardzo sympatyczne oczka wodne, które z jednej strony będą miały właśnie
The benefits can be twofold.
związaną z
They can
rekreacją,
provide
po prostu
splendid
fajne
recreation
miejsca,
areas
gdzie
for those who live nearby,
ale
and they
też
can
będzie
also
miała tą
serve
rolę
as
adaptacyjną,
retention
żeby
basins
gromadziła
for
wodę,
water
bo
which
wodę
can be
można
used in the dry
wykorzystać w
season. It's worthwhile taking Deputy Mayor Michał Olszewski's message to heart. We should bear it in mind that even when we plant trees, it's not unimportant where exactly we plant them and which trees we pick. It does matter which mode of transport we use to get to and from work. It also matters how we use tap water and whether we drink it, something we actively encourage. Unless we become more aware of the environment and unless we change the way we behave, we won't be able to build cities that will be friendly for their inhabitants and for the climate.
Już czas pomyśleć
It's
o
time we think about our grandchildren. Let's work together today. Tomorrow may be too late.